Cases like this, our number one goal is to ensure the community is safe after the crime, which in this case it was. Our second goal is to ensure a thorough investigation is completed and the victim, in this case, gets their privacy and the time to begin the healing process after a horrible attack such as this one. This case was investigated by the Chowchilla Police Department, and I also want to thank the Madera County Sheriff and Sheriff Tyson Pogue for offering additional resources to our agency and the investigators. This additional assistance ensured the suspect in this case, who was identified as 40-year-old Arthur Dean Knapp of Chowchilla, was placed immediately under surveillance. Upon arrival to the location of this crime, officers contacted the minor victim, who had suffered injuries from the assault. Those injuries consisted of not only being sexually assaulted, but also injuries consisted with their throat being slashed, as well as being knocked unconscious. This attempt to take this victim's life was unsuccessful. The reason it was unsuccessful is because the suspect counted on the victim to be weak. He counted wrong. In fact, the victim was so strong, they picked himself up and was able to report what had happened. The victim was taken to Valley Children's Hospital for treatment and underwent a surgery due to the injuries sustained during this violent attack. This investigation by our department started with identifying witnesses and gathering statements that essentially led to the identification of our suspect. These key components led to the verification of the identification of the monster we arrested. I want to extend our agencies and our city officials' sorrow to the victim as well as their family for having to endure such a tragic and horrific assault upon them. An assault carried out by a monster who should not have been walking our streets and should never walk any streets freely again. As part of the investigation, a sexual assault examination was conducted at the medical facility. Evidence was obtained from that examination, and it was submitted to the Department of Justice for examination of the DNA. We are very happy to say that the results of the DNA collected positively identified Arthur Dean Knapp as the perpetrator in this horrible attack. This positive identification of the DNA allowed the Madera County District Attorney to charge Arthur Dean Knapp with the crimes he was booked on originally by this department. District Attorney Sally Moreno will elaborate a little bit more on that shortly. Cases like this cannot happen to our children, and when they do, every asset and investigative tool, as well as personnel available, are used to bring justice to the victims or victim. Cases like this in smaller cities like ours are very personal to all of us and have a large impact on our community and its members. Although we feel compelled to want to know what happened and ask questions, answer to those questions are not for everyone to have or be shared. We must remember there is a young victim involved in this case, and every parent knows how important it would be to them and their family member to have the time to process what happened and seek whatever assistance they need. We must remember to keep that in mind and understand if there is no immediate danger to the community or if the suspect is in our custody, there is no reason or obligation from our agency to share such information. I'm very proud of the investigation conducted by our officers and support staff as they spent several tireless hours ensuring that the investigation was done thoroughly and timely. All of our officers and support staff are committed to our department and, more importantly, to our community. Each of them are an example of what makes this agency great and represents true community service to this city. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to our sergeant who's in charge of our investigations, Wilmer Nzunza. He's going to translate this in Spanish.
Buenas tardes. Como muchos han de saber, hace 12 días, el día 1 de agosto, nuestros oficiales respondieron a una llamada de un acoso sexual. You only have one chance. All my Spanish is gone now.
Now you get a second chance.
I thought that we were like...
Ready? Buenas tardes. Como muchos han de saber, hace 12 días nuestros oficiales respondieron el día 1 de agosto a una localidad aquí en la ciudad de Chowchilla, en la cuadra 200 de la calle Washington Road, para un llamado de un acoso sexual que había ocurrido. Este delito se cometió en una lavandería que forma parte de los departamentos en esa zona. En este caso, nuestra meta número 1 es asegurar la seguridad de la comunidad y asegurarnos de que el delito haya sido cometido. Nuestra segunda meta es asegurarnos que la investigación sea adecuada y que la víctima reciba la asistencia y la privacidad que necesite desde el principio del incidente para que la víctima pueda sanar de tan horrible tragedia. Este caso fue investigado por el Departamento de Policía de Chowchilla y le queremos agradecer al Departamento de Alguacil del Condado de Madera y todos los recursos que ellos nos proporcionaron, en especial al alguacil Tyson Pogue. Esta asistencia nos ayudó a identificar un sospechoso en este delito, un hombre llamado Arthur D. Knapp, de 40 años, residente de Chowchilla. Esa persona fue vigilada inmediatamente después de ser identificado. Cuando los oficiales llegaron a este llamado de atención, los oficiales localizaron una víctima menor de edad que había sostenido lesiones basadas al acoso sexual. Esas lesiones no solo fue acoso sexual, sino que también fue apuñalada y también fue lastimada de una forma que perdió la conciencia. Este intento de quitarle la vida a la víctima no fue exitoso. El motivo que no fue exitoso es porque el sospechoso en este caso pensó que la víctima era débil, pero no lo fue. Esa víctima fue llevada al Hospital de los Niños del Valle Central, donde recibió tratamiento médico para las lesiones que sostuvo. La investigación de este departamento empezó con identificar a varios testigos o personas que tuvieran algo de información. Esa información fue muy importante para poder localizar e identificar al sospechoso en este caso. Queremos dar nuestras condolencias a la familia y la víctima, en este caso, por tener que ser parte o que les haya pasado esto. Esta persona que cometió este delito no debiera haber estado en las calles, sin embargo, sí lo ha estado, pero no queremos que esa persona vuelva a salir de la cárcel de nuevo. Como parte de la investigación, un examen basado en el acoso sexual fue concluido en el hospital. Basado en esa examinación, evidencia que determinó que sí se cometió un acoso sexual, se sostuvo y esa evidencia fue sometida al Departamento de Justicia del Estado para análisis al ADN. Estamos orgullecidos en decir que el análisis de ese ADN identificó al sospechoso Arthur D. Knapp como el sospechoso en este caso. Esta identificación ayudó para que la oficina del fiscal del Condado de Madera pudiera interponer cargos en contra de esta persona. La fiscal del condado, Sally Moreno, hablará más acerca de eso brevemente. Estos casos no nos pueden pasar a nuestros hijos y cuando pasan necesitamos usar cada recurso que tenemos disponibles para investigar y aclarar estos casos. Especialmente en una ciudad pequeña como la nuestra, es importante esclarecer estos casos y estos casos son muy personales para nosotros los oficiales que trabajamos aquí. Tenemos que tomar en cuenta que la víctima es menor de edad y como cualquier padre lo sabe, es importante mantener la privacidad de esas víctimas basado al crimen acontecido. Hay que tomar en cuenta que hasta el momento no hay un peligro a la comunidad basado a este incidente y la persona responsable está bajo custodia. No hay ninguna obligación de nuestro departamento de policía para dar más información, como no hay un peligro inminente todavía. Estamos muy orgullosos que la investigación concluida por nuestros oficiales y detectives y los que nos han asistido nos ayudó a resolver este delito. Todos nosotros estamos cometidos y comprometidos a nuestra comunidad. Todos ellos son un buen ejemplo de lo que hace esta comunidad, que engrandece a esta comunidad. A este momento queremos invitar al alguacil Tyson Pope.
So I think Tyson has kindly decided not to speak today, although I did want to start by thanking the sheriff and also obviously Chief Palmer and Sergeant Nzunza and our whole Valley community, including the Department of Justice. It's at times like this that the community comes together to keep ourselves safe. And I just wanted to let everybody know too, it took us a minute to get this case filed. And that's because, we want to make sure, and I want to again thank the chief for making sure that this investigation is complete, that we have the evidence we need to file charges. In this case, we have charged Arthur Dean Knapp with forcible rape and the infliction of great bodily injury. That charge in and of itself exposes him to life without the possibility of parole in prison. In addition, we have alleged that he has suffered 2 prior strike offenses, and so those also will increase the exposure of him to prison. So I know Chief Palmer has assured the community that they're safe. He's handed this case to us, and we are prepared to do everything that we need to make sure that the community stays safe and justice is served. At this point, I don't know if anybody has any questions for the chief or for me.
Do you guys know how the victim is doing?
Emily, do you want to talk about that?
The victim is safe, and I'm sure she thanks everybody. They thank everybody for their prayers and just to protect their confidentiality. That's all I'll say. But just know they're safe, and all your prayers so far have worked.
Can we get your first and last name as well?
Officer Emily Huckabee.
Chief, could this monster, could he have strike again if you guys wouldn't have got him?
Obviously this was an incident where it was an opportunity for him to say that he would not, with a history of violence. I would say there's very likely that he would have done this again had he have not been apprehended.
And did he know the victim?
I do not know that. To my knowledge, I am not aware of whether or not there was some sort of interaction between them prior to this.
Did he live at that apartment complex where it happened?
He did not.
What was he doing there, just without getting in the investigation? Was he just walking by there, or?
To our understanding, he was there visiting someone, and again, just used this opportunity and this moment that he thought someone was weak to do this type of horrible crime.
How hard is it for you, Chief? I mean, it's just a kid. I mean, I have a kid. I'm sure you have a kid, a grandkid.
Look, this is a small community. Myself, officers, we're engaged a lot with this community, especially the youth, whether it be coaching or mentoring or other different avenues. Anytime anything like this involves a child, someone who's precious, and their innocence is stolen in such a violent and grotesque manner, it hits home very hard. We all do have children. We know children of these ages, and we can visualize that occurring to them, and it's unacceptable. And again, it's just a horrible thing to happen to a child.
And the suspect has a long 18-year criminal record. Can you talk on how this man is violent and he's been on the streets for quite some time?
Yeah, he does. We have alleged at least 2 prior strikes, and I know earlier in the media there was a posting. CDCR, our prison system, went through all the times that he has been retained and released. Most recently, I believe in 2021, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, I'm not that good at math, but he didn't do 6 years, and that's partly how credits work in California these days, and part of it is a little unclear how it is that so many violent people are being released into our community. It's uphill, and here in this valley, we understand that public safety is our priority, but we need to make sure that we're letting our legislature know and that we're voting because these are the kinds of consequences that happen when these kinds of people get released.
Would you say this is a reminder just for like parents, you know, to keep an eye on your kids, if they wander off, you know, hey, you kind of know where, you know.
Absolutely, this is a reminder to all parents. You know, by the same token, as children get to be a certain age, they need to be allowed some latitude. So, you know, each parent has to make that decision for themselves. And I think one of the reasons that this is so horrific is because Chowchilla is generally such a safe community. And I hope now that people will be able to relax and feel safe again with this man off the streets.
Yeah, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on that. In regards to parents watching their children, obviously that is important, but there is never a society where any child should have to worry about something like this. It doesn't matter whether or not a parent should be watching. Something like this should not happen. Any child should be able to walk freely in any common area and in any public place, anywhere in this community without something like this happening. So this has nothing to do with the parent and 100% to do with the monster that was arrested.
Well said, Jeff.
And can you just go over what exactly his charges are?
Yes, he's, count one is rape of a child over 14 years of age or older, inflicting great bodily injury. And that charge in and of itself carries with it the life without the possibility of parole. Then we have the allegations of 2 prior strikes and the use of a weapon, and that's it.
Is there any way to say it in Spanish?
Me hablo solo poquito y estas cosas son muy específico y tengo problemas con mi español cuando cosas muy importantes a este. So, lo siento por este, pero si tú quieres hablo con Wilmer afterwards. Okay.
Chief, what do you want people to know here and that's watching this tonight?
First and foremost, our children are our future, and we have to protect them. Legislation has to protect them. We all have an obligation to protect these children from legislation and those in those positions all the way down to us individually. And when moments like this happen, for those out there that choose to do something like this or thinking of doing something like this, know if you're going to do something like that in this community, don't come here. And secondly, we will use whatever resource available for however long it takes to ensure that justice is served for a person who commits a crime like this.
Are you able to give the location of where the incident happened?
It happened in the I'm not going to give specific, but it happened in the 200 block of Washington Road.
And what's your message to the victim and their family during this really hard time right now?
Honestly, a message to the victim is very hard because I don't know what I can say to undo the trauma and what a victim like this is going to have to endure for the rest of their life. This sometimes is a life sentence for a victim as well. This is a moment that has the potential to alter the direction that their life goes, and is going to impact that child for the rest of their life. And my message to the families is we love you. I personally, I'm sorry it happened on my watch, but unfortunately we have evil people.
And how do you ensure that this guy does not see the streets again?
Well, that's why we worked together, and that's why we took the time that we did. And we worked closely with the Department of Justice, and we try to put together the best case we can, and then we pursue justice to the extent that we can. And we have conversations ahead of time. It's very emotional. These experiences are very emotional for all of us, and it's important, and that's why we take time to look carefully at the facts and to look carefully at how is the best way to move forward and to get justice for our community. That's why we try not to rush these things any more than the law makes us.
And what is his
He's currently being held on no bail, and just to be clear, that means that no amount of money will get him out. He will stay where he is, which is different than $0 bail, which we're getting rid of here in the Valley.
Jeff, this, you kind of choked up a little bit. I mean, you can tell it really means.
Well, it's these are cases, like I said, you know, myself and many of our officers here are involved with the youth. We coach them, we raise them, we mentor them. We have children these ages, and they're our future. They're the reason we got into this job. And if we can't protect them, I take it personal. So this is very tough for me to swallow. I will say I am extremely proud of our investigators, those who are coordinating, the leadership I have around me. You know, these are moments too that I want people to remember, the officers and the investigators that have to go and interview the victims and go through that process. They take that very personally, they take it with them. Because they too have children, and when they're speaking to these victims, they're looking at their children as they're speaking to them. And this is something that will stay with the officers and the investigators for the rest of their lives as well.